heavy downpour soaked the streets of Mumbai as 7 friends gathered in a cozy cafe for one final meeting before Kunal, their childhood companion, flew abroad to pursue his dream job. The group shared laughter, reminisced about old times, and decided to do something memorable for their farewell. It was Vicky, the adventurous one, who suggested, "Why don't we spend the night at the infamous Glen Manor? They say it's haunted." Initially met with hesitation, the idea eventually piqued everyone's curiosity. Glen Manor was a dilapidated hotel on the outskirts of the city, shrouded in tales of unexplained deaths, missing people, and paranormal sightings. The perfect spot for a daring adventure. That evening, armed with flashlights, snacks, and a bottle of whiskey, the friends drove to the eerie manor. The building stood like a forgotten relic of a darker past, its grandeur masked by decades of decay. Vines crept over the crumbling facade, and broken windows stared out like hollow eyes. "Looks like the perfect place for a horror movie," Mira joked, though her voice trembled. As they stepped inside, a sudden chill swept over them. The air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were alive, watching. The group laughed off their unease, claiming a room on the second floor as their base camp. They set up candles, shared ghost stories, and even dared each other to explore the deserted hallways. Around midnight, strange things began to happen. Priya, the skeptic of the group, swore she saw a shadow dart past the window. "It's just the wind," she insisted, though her voice faltered. The electricity, though unreliable, flickered on for a brief moment, revealing a dusty mirror in the corner. In its reflection, the friends noticed something odd, an extra figure standing among them, just for a fraction of a second. A figure clad in an old maid's uniform, her face obscured. "Okay, that was creepy," Rahul admitted, his bravado fading. Despite their growing unease, they convinced themselves it was just their imagination. Vicky suggested exploring the basement to prove there was nothing to fear. Reluctantly, the group agreed. The basement was worse than they had imagined, damp, cold, and suffocatingly dark. Their flashlights barely pierced the shadows. They found old, dusty furniture, broken toys, and a strange wooden chest. When Kunal opened it, they discovered faded photographs of people dressed in 1930s attire, their faces scratched out. A loud bang echoed through the basement. Startled, they turned to see the door they had entered through had slammed shut. Panic set in as the lights flickered and a low, guttural growl filled the room. "What was that?" Mira screamed. Before anyone could answer, they saw her, a ghostly woman with hollow eyes and a twisted smile, standing at the far end of the basement. She began to move toward them, her footsteps echoing unnaturally loud. The group bolted, desperately trying to reopen the door. Vicky managed to kick it open, and they scrambled back upstairs, breathless and terrified. Back in their room, they found a dusty journal lying on the table. It hadn't been there before. Flipping through its brittle pages, they read about the history of Glen Manor. Built in the 1920s, it had been a luxury hotel until a series of mysterious deaths led to its closure. The most chilling entry detailed the story of a maid, Rosa, who was accused of witchcraft and tortured by the guests. Before dying, she cursed the hotel, vowing no one who entered would ever leave. As they read, the room grew colder, and the candles extinguished themselves. Whispers filled the air, growing louder until they became deafening screams. The friends huddled together, paralyzed by fear. The group decided to leave, but the hotel seemed determined to keep them inside. Every door they tried led them back to the same room. The corridors twisted and turned, leading nowhere. The ghostly figure of Rosa appeared again, this time accompanied by shadowy apparitions of the hotel's former guests, their faces contorted in anguish. Kunal, the calmest of the group, realized that the curse might be broken if they apologized for the suffering caused to Rosa. With trembling voices, they shouted their apologies into the darkness, begging for forgiveness. For a moment, everything went still. Then, Rosa's apparition appeared directly in front of them, her hollow eyes staring into their souls. "Leave," she whispered, her voice echoing with unearthly power. The next thing they knew, they were outside the manor, the first rays of dawn breaking over the horizon. The hotel stood as silent and foreboding as ever, but the oppressive aura was gone. Shaken and exhausted, they drove back to the city, vowing never to speak of that night again. Yet, the experience stayed with them, haunting their dreams and changing their perspectives on life and death. Kunal boarded his flight the next day, but as he looked out of the plane window, he thought he saw a figure in the clouds, a woman in a maid's uniform, watching him with a twisted smile. The curse of Glen Manor had not ended, it had merely begun anew. And so, the haunted goodbye became the memory none of them could ever escape.